you, Dennis. Mr. Prime Minister. So I opened this symposium with my little meatball story, if you remember from the morning, from which we've learned that most of the narrow-focused diets can sometimes work against their own reason for existence. We've also learned that we make about 200 food-related decisions every day, and that it's almost impossible to make all of them good decisions, especially if you look at the food and the food systems holistically, not only following one goal. So, to help us take those decisions, people invented diets with simple rules, and these diets have become ideologies. We also learned that we haven't come across a diet that helps us develop a positive attitude towards food, or a diet that tells us to respect the farmer or the chef that made our food. We've learned that food systems are extremely complex, and our decisions are influenced by the marketing messages of the profit-driven multinational food industry, as well as the social pressure of modern media, which often reflects in eating disorders. An important message from today is that every meal we have is an opportunity to socialize, to spend time with our friends, our families, to look into people's eyes, not screens. And the existing diets simply don't approach our relationship with food in this way. That's why we've asked the experts to tell us what are the basic behavioral guidelines to make the dietary choices that are good for the planet, respectful and responsible towards all people, good for our well-being and good for our body. And we've learned so much from this process, and scientists agree that we have to use common sense, and they agree that we have to learn about food to make the decisions good. So I will read the first part of the manifesto because I think it's important for the Prime Minister to hear and for all of us to hear it once again. Common sensitarian diet is not a diet that restricts in what we can and cannot eat. It is a personal, moral commitment and an appeal for the climate, environmental, social, economical and political changes that are needed to restore the sustainable food systems. It is a mindset that helps us develop a positive attitude towards food and makes us aware of the moral implications of our food choices. It is also a guide for informed food choices for individuals, farmers, food providers, chefs, businesses, and policymakers that will benefit the climate, the natural environment, and human health. The new common sensitarian diet is respectful, responsible, and inclusive. It is also satisfying because it's good for our bodies, our souls, and our planet. And it's respectful to all stakeholders in the food supply chains. So we can all become common sensitarians by simply buying, eating, and making food that is good for the planet, respectful and responsible towards all people, good for our well-being, and good for our body. We gave examples of what chefs can do, what each and every one of us can do, and we've realized that we can really all make better food choices. But no matter who we are and where we stand right now, it is extremely important that we reverse the climate change, and the fact is that one of the single most effective ways to do it is by shifting our diets towards more sustainable choices. That is the morning wrap-up, and in the afternoon we talked about gastronomy, especially the culture around the gastronomy, the cultural appropriation, about storytelling, about restaurants that should be more sexy by playing good music, and we learned a lot about wine. So thank you very much, and I would like to invite Mr. Prime Minister to close this symposium.
So, thank you very much, Martin. And an update, we're really honored to have you here, Prime Minister, but it's not going to be a closing remark, per se. They've decided the first, let's put it this way, the most influential politician and the most influential chef in Slovenia are going to close this as a chat and as a discussion on the future of culinary in Slovenia.
So good evening.
Hello, Anna.
How are you?
Quite well.
You missed an amazing summit.
Anna. No. You know why I asked Anna to join me at the stage? Because she likes to talk a lot and fast. So let's do it now.
Okay, as far as I remember, we did it 10 years ago on a stage
We did.
in Portorož. But, okay, I will ask you a question. Why did you call me in the middle of summer?
Okay. Okay, first I need to admit that I am a food lover, especially when it's a fine meal is accompanied by a good wine. And I was, wow, already salivating by listening to the ladies before on good wines. Then I enjoy it very much. But since seeing my new occupation, in the summer, I started to think about food in a different way as well. In a way of how can I, as a politician, influence my own life philosophy, actually exercise my own life philosophy to make it more beneficial to the society. And I envisaged a plan of how can we deal with the diet change throughout the nation in a most appropriate way. At that time, it was a sort of a hobby program, as you remember. And so, okay, it's summer. I sent all of my ministers and the government on a holiday, and I stayed in Ljubljana. I said, now I have 2 weeks when I can work on projects for my soul. And the most prominent project was the food project, or the diet project. And when it comes to food, who do you think of in Slovenia? Ana Roš.
You get
so
hungry.
that's how I called her as well. But you are not the only one. I need to admit that.
But I know.
Yeah.
But can I ask you something? Do you think it will stay with words, or can we proceed to some action?
Oh, no. In the meantime, since you were traveling around the world and I was traveling around Europe, lots of professionals already started to work, especially the two workforces, so one on the healthcare system, and the other one on the environmental implications of food choice. They did a lot of work already, so I have some results to report, if you ask.
Well, I'm waiting for that. But can I ask you something? If I ask you what for you is a common sense dietary manifesto, I'm not talking about restaurants. So you come to Hiša Franko and there is no democracy, you eat what I cook. But like, what do you want us together to achieve? What do you think a manifesto should include? I don't think you read this one, so I would really like to see if we have common points.
Okay, it comes with where I started in summer as well, and my first thought was that whatever we want to do, we have to do it not on a mandatory basis, but on a voluntary basis, saying we will not exclude or force anyone to exclude anything. So we're not forcing meat out of the diet, but we want to build public awareness, customer awareness of what eating too much meat brings to his body, her body, what does it make, and why meat is fine when we consume it under certain restrictions, and when it's not fine anymore. It's like, I experienced that myself, but I just wanted to, and I was thinking about, okay, how do we convince the public that they should reduce meat consumption? Not constrain or limit totally, but just how to reduce it. This was one of the first things, and when I was reading the manifesto, I enjoyed very much in saying, okay, let's build the awareness among the professionals, like healthcare professionals, that's very important, around the pediatricians, among the politicians as well, why food production is so important and food consumption. So two things. First, it's healthcare, and the second one is really the environmental implications and all the effects it has on the environment in all kinds of manners, especially when it comes to climate crisis, where the role of the too much, meat production and consumption is really devastating to the environment and to the climate.
Okay, now I will make you a small question. I think I told you a story, but I think nobody else knows it. I was a few years ago invited by a very wealthy Slovenian family who became vegans to dinner in January. It was sometimes in January. And so what happened was like I was invited because they had a great plan how to make plant-based meat actually. So your brain processes a sunchoke or a pear or a salad as though it was a meat. And I was like, so of course, you know, I come from a very poor countryside where we actually eat what we have. So we honestly eat a lot of game, which we never discussed today, but game is something that our forests are really full of. There is too many. Absolutely, at least the Socha Valley. And the game restriction is the same for the whole country, while Socha Valley could have a hunt open the whole year. And that is very sustainable meat and very healthy, by the way. But however, that dinner, that meeting finished down in January at this rich people's house, eating red bell peppers and Chinese mushrooms. So I asked them, but where do these Chinese mushrooms come from? And where do these red bell pepper come from? Because it's a month of January. And so there was a silence at the table. And they said, but how about like, you know, the airplane flying from China or like the emissions from the greenhouses? So I think every decision should be very well thought about and thought of. Where are we going to produce enough greens, vegetables for, what, 8 billion people?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, out of summer, what I learned is that we could really utilize our soil and water in a much more efficient way when it comes to ingredients if we switch to more plant-based diet. Again, I eat meat as well, but now you're speaking about sustainability when it comes to the planet problems, and it's only achievable through more plant-based, local, of course, but plant-based diet. That's the only way we can achieve the global sustainability. But more than that, it's truly the utilization of soil is so much lower if you apply modern technologies and techniques in a plant-based system, that it's amazing. You can really produce, you can be like a country like Slovenia at the moment. This is something, it's a paradox. We are totally and 100% sustainable when it comes to meat production. 100%. Self-sufficient, totally. So we do produce more than we need when it comes to meat and milk. But no such way in any other, like vegetable or any other product. So it's really amazing how through agriculture policy you can steer what you will be producing and how much self-sustainable you would be as a country. And it's the same territory that you're covering, but you are just not producing enough to meet your own demand or your own nation demand if you do not switch the diet appropriately. This is it's an easy calculation, and it's been done, and it's shown that we could be exporting food by switching the policy, agricultural policy, and not by continuing along the existing patterns that we are employing right now. It's an interesting calculation to do. The other thing is that it is true that the local production, it's a trend to go, but then again, not every country can produce every kind of vegetable. So I'm more of a, I was listening to terroir, but I'm more of a like a regional sort of a production on cycles and patterns, because then you can cover all the needs of a region, or more broader region, like maybe Alpe Adria region and so forth.
So you should be listening to me in the morning, because I told that my dream, and really my dream is maybe more personal than business, is to build this network of biodynamic organic farmers, not only platform for the chefs and for the restaurants, but for every single human being who really wants to know where the food comes from. And by the way, I'm almost vegetarian, and even Hisha Franco uses meat just as a spice. So let's do it this way. I think you are the first example that I know in international politics, highest levels, that is interested in the topic to come down to the ground, talking with chefs, with journalists about this topic. I did an interview with a Spanish journalist before, and she said, wow, she said, we should talk about that. The politics should be included in these discussions. I'm really thankful you came, and I hope that you come and test in Hisha what you tried in the farm. And to be honest, I'm really proud you're here today. And I think it could be a great start for a great change. And this was an experiment, because he just said before he doesn't want to have a speech, but we should just discuss.